What up, motherfucks? It's your boy once again. This video is gonna be like it's gonna be one video, but I'm gonna talk about two specific topics. All right. Number one, I'm gonna talk about how WrestleMania thus far is shaping up to look like shit. All right. We're basically in March, as far as I'm concerned. You know what I mean? And there you have it. Right. That means next month is WrestleMania, and nothing feels legit. Like I don't give a shit about any of this. Every WrestleMania, there's at least something that I might look forward to seeing, right? Now, we should all remind ourselves that this is the first WrestleMania in a long, long time, right? Except for that weird one where Undertaker didn't show up, where there is no Undertaker, right? Like, that concept is gone now, you know? And with that in mind, I'm thinking to myself, what the hell's the point, right? Undertaker will be missed severely this year, and there is no one to fill his spot. The only thing that is remotely interesting is wondering whether Edge will or will not win the title. Because this match I could see going either way. You know what I mean? I could see Edge winning and making his comeback, you know, actually doing his comeback and, you know, fulfilling the prophecy, if you will. Or I could see Roman Reigns winning too, you know what I mean? Roman Reigns has been booked really strong, you know what I mean? As a matter of fact, I got into an argument on YouTube with some neckbeard who was trying to convince me that AEW booking is so good because nobody loses. And I'm like, bro, Roman Reigns hasn't lost, like, since he grew a beard, he hasn't lost, motherfucks. He's like a beard Samson, you know what I mean? So there you have it. But beyond that, and even that, I'm not really that excited about. You know, I wouldn't be excited if it was Randy Orton versus Edge either, don't get me wrong. But at least that, I know it's going to be a great match. This could be a piece of shit. I could totally see this as being two guys trying to hit a spear on each other. You know, that's going to be the whole match, which is kind of stupid, right? It's kind of what I said earlier about Sheamus versus McIntyre. You know what I mean? Just people running, raising their leg up, and calling it a finisher. So this is why I personally believe that the best person, the best choice to main event WrestleMania and close WrestleMania is none other than, that's right, cucks, Lashley. It's a simple solution. As a matter of fact, we're going to soon do a video, 25 reasons why Lashley is awesome, all right? So we have that. Now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about the real problem here, the real issue, motherfucks, and that is the Big Show signed with AEW. Now, I have mentioned this in a few videos before, but we haven't really talked about it in detail. So, what appears to be happening is that Big Show is going to join the commentary team. Now, this is retarded. I've never heard Big Show do commentary. I know he's charismatic and he's decent on the mic, so there's no reason to think that he wouldn't be able to do it. But it's stupid. You know what I mean? Like, it's so dumb. Especially when you have Shaq coming. You know, fucking do what WWE didn't do. Do Shaq versus Big Show. You know what I mean? But that's not here or there. Maybe they will do that down the line. I don't know. I don't really give a flying fuck, to be honest. The only thing that bothers me is that Big Show is still, like, obviously, like, in wrestling shape, quote unquote. I mean, I saw an interview with him and he looked a little bit sloppy, right? A little sloppy around the corner. Like, he looked worse than he did on the Big show. But that's to be expected. I mean, he hasn't wrestled in a while. And honestly, like, it didn't seem like he was going to really wrestle much more, you know? He did, however, in my opinion, main event last year's WrestleMania against Drew McIntyre after Drew McIntyre beat Brock Lesnar. But that's neither here nor there. So it's been a year since Big Show has wrestled. Now, with all that in mind, motherfuck, I really want a Big Show to win that, by the way. But with all that in mind, let's put something into context here, okay? Big Show is a big man, which means even as he ages, he will still be able to do big man shit, right? Like, he can still pretend to do the choke slam if he can't lift the guy up. But he's only 50. He can definitely lift a guy up, you know? So Big Show has a few years left in him for sure, motherfucks. So the fact that they're bringing him in as a commentator, I think is retarded. Now, I understand that that's like his temporary role until he like heals up or whatever and is ready to go. But I would just say, put him on the shelf. Don't say anything. I don't understand why AEW does this. And this further, you know, destroys the idea that somehow Tony Khan is like the best booker ever. You know, he's not the best booker. I'll tell you why, cucks. All right, a good booker wouldn't reveal his hand. You know, a good booker wouldn't be like, "Oh, we signed Big Show." No, motherfuckers, do it like a surprise. You didn't say we signed Sting. Same shit. Big Show would be a bigger surprise than Sting, motherfuckers. Here's why. Big Show is firmly a WWE guy. You know, people can say what they want. Oh, he was the Giant. Nobody gave a fuck. You know, Big Show is a WWE guy. All right, Sting is not a WWE guy. Sting is a WCW guy. So getting Sting is not this huge get, right? Same thing in TNA. TNA understood this. And even though Sting was a huge, huge deal, right? The real get was Kurt Angle. That's what started turning the tide, right? Because he was a legit, true and blue WWE guy. You know what I mean? He was Kurt Angle, motherfuckers. He was like a actual WWE main eventer, you know? Big Show is an actual WWE main eventer. Sting is not. Sting has been everywhere, you know what I mean? For a guy that after WCW folded, right? For a guy whose whole thing was like, I'm not going to go anywhere else, he sure as shit went everywhere you could possibly go. You know, so there you have it, right? Not to like shit on Sting, but I'm just saying this is a huge opportunity, right? They do dumb shit like they don't announce that Jack Swagger gets signed. You know, that's a surprise that people have to pretend it's a big deal. It's just retarded. Nobody cares about Jack Swagger. But Big Show, the one guy that you have that actually might move the needle a bit. He might actually move the needle. Like, not one person tuned in because Jack Swagger went to AEW. Not one person tuned in because fucking FTR went to AEW. Not one person tuned in for any of these cucks. People tuned in for Jericho, maybe Cucky Rhodes a little bit, and they sure as shit would tune in for the Big Show. Like, I want to see the Big Show. You know? I want to see the Big Show, like, completely destroy, like, Hybrid 2, for example. I want to see the Big Show completely destroy Team Taz. I want to see Big Show versus Brian Cage. I think that'd be great. You know what I mean? There's plenty of things I want to see, including, but not limited to, who can pick up the Big Show in AEW. Maybe Powerhouse Hobbs can put himself over by picking up Big Show. Maybe Brian Cage. You know what I mean? That's what's interesting. Big Show versus Wardlow interests me. You know, in a situation where Wardlow turns face and then he beats Big Show to get put over. You know what I mean? These things, Big Show is an interesting entity in wrestling, and he should not be wasted, right, by being announced as the announcer. It's fucking retarded. Whoever did this is a moron. You know, the only correct way, like the best way to introduce Big Show is this: AEW Evolution. No one knows what's going on, right? You make Sting and Darby Allin the main event. You know what I mean? Versus those cucks, Team Taz, right? And then in the end, let's say you have Sting and Darby Allin win, right? After the match, pretty simple writing right here, motherfucks. They get attacked by the rest of fucking, what's it called? Team Taz. They get attacked by the rest of them, you know what I mean? And they get their ass beat, right? And Team Taz is beating the shit out of them. You know what I'm saying? And all of a sudden, the lights go out because that's like a thing you have to do now. And then you just hear the new music, but before the new music, it has to go, well, right? And then like, people are like, what the fuck? You know, just go like, well, and people are like, what? Lights go off, Big Show comes out, motherfucks. You know, looking hopefully great, right? He comes in, and I can even fantasy book how he would enter the ring. He would walk towards the ring where like Ricky Starks or maybe Powerhouse Hobbs would meet him like on the ramp. He'd grab him with his hand and do the little headbutt to the hand thing. That guy's done, right? Then he'd go in the ring. He would start clotheslining people. He would find Hook. Remember Hook, motherfucks? He's a little skinny dude. He'd find Hook, rip his shirt apart, and just chop him right in the chest. And that would be enough for Hook. Then, I mean, Taz is going to run out of the ring, obviously. And then eventually what would happen is it would be him and Brian Cage, and he just chokeslam Brian Cage. And then, if you wanted to be a heel, you then have him chokeslam Darby Allin. I mean, that would be sick, you know? Seeing Big Show chokeslam the smallest guy ever, basically, Darby Allin, would be fucking awesome to see. Everyone would love that, right? I just wrote the best way to introduce Big Show. You know? And it makes Big Show feel like a big deal. It creates this awe about AEW pay-per-views. You know? That anything can happen on an AEW pay-per-view. Because one thing we know about WWE pay-per-views is that it's all going to be shit. At least AEW, historically, they've had good pay-per-views in the sense like they've debuted things in the pay-per-views. You know, the matches are whatever, but they've debuted things. You know, they'd be like in one pay-per-view, like Matt Hardy will appear or Brody Lee on that one show. You know what I mean? There's still things that are exciting about AEW, including the Big Show. Not arguably, Big Show is by far the greatest signing that they've gotten since starting, right? Like, if you don't count Jericho's the only one that might be better than Big Show in terms of like who's gonna bring in more asses to seats, right? Sting, you could argue that at one point that he's a better signing than Big Show. At this point, he's not. Big Show is more interesting than Sting at this point. Sting is interesting only because he's Sting. You know, and I honestly, I don't know what things to do after this. The mystique is over, if you ask me. You know, but that's neither here nor there. The reality is what the reality is, and that is that the Big Show is the biggest get in the history of this company, and they're not treating it as that. They're treating it as if, like, you know, when they sign someone like Excalibur, and they're like, Excalibur is all in, like anybody gives a fuck. You know, Paul White is all in. Everyone gives a fuck. People should care about this. It's also indicative of the fact that a long-term, big-time WWE employee has switched sides. That's the bigger story here, motherfuckers. The bigger story here isn't just Big Show, the legendary Big Show, the greatest big man of all time, as I've said before, right? The story isn't that that guy went to AEW. The story is that, like, a loyal WWE employee went there. Big Show is almost on the level of, like, Undertaker. You know what I'm saying? Like, he hasn't had as much time as Undertaker, but he's almost on that level. Or Kane. You know, it's weird for these people to go to AEW. You know, even when Kurt Angle went to TNA, it was like, all right, Kurt Angle was around for like 6-7 years. I mean, obviously, like, a very high-level performer, a tenured employee, but he wasn't there for 30 years. You know what I'm saying? It's a different game when someone goes for 30 years and comes back, right? And is also a big deal. And in this case, is a legend. The only thing that's bad about AEW's poaching of WWE superstars is that none of them are in their prime. You know, unfortunately, you need to do that once. You need to find, like, you have to get someone to jump ship, right? So, for example, TNA had Christian Cage and Kurt Angle jump ship in their primes. Not only in their physical primes, right? But Kurt Angle kind of, like, he was like a little bit of a downfall, you know? But he was still, like, champion out a few months before. And Christian was, like, he had, like, the best year of his career, in my opinion. One of the best years in wrestling ever, like 2005, 2006. And then he jumped ship to TNA. You know? These were people that were, like, at the top of their game, motherfucks. And then he had all these other jobbers from, like, TNA that were already there, like Samoa Joe. And then these ROH guys, bunch of other shit. But then they started signing people like Jeff Hardy. You know what I mean? They started bringing people, Ric Flair, of course, all that shit. Started bringing people to supplement their current roster. WCW, AEW doesn't do that. AEW really hangs their hat on just having people there. You know, it doesn't matter if the people that are there do their job correctly. They're just there. That's like the point of AEW, you know? Like, they'll say things like JR is all in. No. JR, the slogan should be changed to from JR is all in to JR is there, because he's definitely not all in. He doesn't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't give a rat's ass. He's not elite. He's not none of those things. He's just there, right? And that's what they're doing to Big Show. Big Show is just there. Big Show should go and bury the entire Nightmare Squad, or whatever the fuck, Dark Order, I should say. He should bury that entire group by himself. That's what should happen. This is Big Show, motherfuckers. This is a big deal, you know. But probably what they're gonna do is they're gonna say Big Show is excited to work here. He's gonna smile like an ass, a bunch of other shit like that, right? And eventually, don't be tricked, motherfuckers. Eventually, these things will have an end, right? Because now it's becoming a bit too frequent. I understand they're only going after people like Matt Hardy and Luke Harper, rest in peace. But the facts are what the facts are. Eventually, like, after Big Show, let's say it's Kane, right? Hypothetically speaking, right? Let's say it's Booker T, or someone that can probably still go for a few matches, you know? You have these people, right? Let's say it's Kurt Angle, you know what I'm saying? Let's say you get all these people in there. Eventually, the fact that Jericho started this company won't mean much. Like, when Sting is champion, it won't mean as much that Jericho was the first champion. You know? Jericho will become obsolete, and then before you know it, Jericho's contract is going to expire. And Jericho is still in good shape, quote unquote, in terms of, like, his ability to wrestle, because he hasn't had that many injuries, you know? And Jericho is going to eventually go back to WWE. And the same thing will happen that happened with TNA, because they refuse to book people correctly, you know? Someone like Big Show is a once-in-a-lifetime talent. I'm not saying listen to people like the ones that are saying make Matt Hardy the world champion. That's retarded. I'm talking about people that specifically are saying Big Show is awesome and Big Show should get a push, not come in as the announcer. But beyond all this, I will say this. It breaks my heart a bit, motherfucks. It breaks my heart a bit to see Big Show, one of my favorites, go to AEW. Here's why. Big Show, when I was a kid, he was my least favorite wrestler because I loved The Rock, right? And it wasn't until I grew up that I realized that one of the reasons why I love The Rock, beyond all the reasons that we all love The Rock, was because of how well Big Show played his role, right? Then I started to appreciate Big Show so much, you know? And always, Big Show was always involved in some of the most important segments. And he's one of, in my opinion, one of, if not the most memorable wrestler of all time. I think Big Show is the most memorable wrestler of all time. You know, people say like Mr. WrestleMania, Shawn Michaels. I think it's Big Show, motherfuckers. Big Show's out there fighting Floyd Mayweather one day and then Aki Bono the next. You know, then he's getting Umaga, and he's fighting like McMahon or whatever, getting his like fighting DX with McMahon and getting McMahon's head put up his own ass. Like Big Show's memorable, you know. So that's what I gotta say about that, cucks. The fact that he's forced essentially to go to AEW means one of a number of things. You know, number one, it's obviously always possible that Big Show hates WWE this whole time and was looking for an out. Now, that's obviously very, very unlikely. The likelier scenario is that he had some sort of contractual dispute and he's using AEW as leverage, right? Vince maybe didn't bite, didn't give him the money he was looking for, so he's like, fuck it, I'm going to go to AEW, right? Rest assured, Big Show's going back to WWE. You know what I'm saying? Big Show's not ending his career with AEW. That's retarded. This is going to be like a 1-2 year thing where he's there basically just to make some money and to tell Vince like, yo, if you don't pay me what I want, I can hang out here. You know what I'm saying? And do absolutely nothing and just be there, right? Big Show, Paul White is there, you know? Maybe in that he'll win the AEW title once. I mean, obviously, someone like Big Show versus Kenny Omega is just laughable. It's just a laughable, it's a joke. Like you could put the entire elite, right, including Hangman Page, against the Big Show, and he would beat them all up in real life. There's no doubt about it. Like it's a different ball game completely. You know what I mean? As a matter of fact, feed him Hybrid 2 and Private Party as well while you're at it. Just have him kill all these motherfuckers. You know? So there you have it, right? That does break my heart a bit, you know. But I would not consider this to be a betrayal. Like a lot of people are like, "Oh, Big Show betrayed WWE." Like, fuck out of here. You know what I'm saying? It's all about the money. Big Show's like 50, bro. Big Show's 50. His sitcom, which I thought was actually all right considering what it was canceled. You know, maybe because of COVID, maybe not. Right? The facts are what they are. He needs money, I'm sure. You know, it can't hurt to have some money. And there you have it. You know, what is he gonna do? He's gonna go to the company that's gonna pay him the most, or he's gonna use the existence of AEW to try to negotiate a better deal for himself with Vince. Don't worry about him. He'll be back to WWE, and everything will be right again with the world. As a matter of fact, I think all these guys are going to be back to WWE. All the, like Matt Hardy, 100%, at least in some capacity. You know, he'll probably finish his career in WWE. I'm not even joking. He'll probably have like a nice old ass Hardy Boys reunion. Like Jeff Hardy's only in his early 40s. Matt Hardy's like in his mid 40s. Like, and it wouldn't be inconceivable that in 3 years they become Raw Tag Team Champions. You know what I mean? A lot of these guys are going to end up there. And things really are going to start to change when AEW loses a guy to WWE. Because that has not happened yet. WWE has not taken a guy from AEW and put them on WWE. That has just yet to happen. Now, I know that all the AEW fans think it's like, well, the AEW fans and the AEW wrestlers are loyal. The wrestlers wouldn't side with Vince. They want their creative freedom. Horse shit. The ones that are smart, right, realize that there's no such thing as creative freedom, and that their creative freedom is shit. None of these guys are creative, you know? So they're just waiting for the opportunity. Do you really think that Wardlow or Darby Allin or MJF, do you think their end goal is to be in AEW? Do you think someone like MJF, do you think his end goal is to be an Indies wrestler? No, his end goal is to be the next Miz, right? Now, he's never going to become the next Miz. He's going to probably have a career kind of like EC3, if I had to guess. Right? He'll have like an EC3 Robert Roode career. You know, that's how good he is. I mean, as a matter of fact, I think EC3 and Robert Roode are way better than MJF. But he'll be signed by WWE eventually. You know what I mean? And that's going to happen to a lot of people. Wardlow, I predict, is going to be signed by WWE. You know? But that's honestly about it. Like, I could see them signing, like, the Acclaimed, maybe. Who else? That's it, really. I don't think there's anybody else in AEW that would actually make it in WWE. You know? I don't even think the ones that, like, they got from WWE would make it now. You know? I don't think they're good enough. Like, John Moxley, really gives a fuck. You know? But a lot of these guys are going to, like, the good ones, the Jerichos and stuff, and the Big Shows are going to end up in WWE sooner or later. And a few of the good ones in AEW are the ones that seem to be good ones, like MJF and shit like that, are also, MJF might not actually, because I don't think he's that impressive looking. Like, he's not that big or strong or anything, really. So, it is what it is. But I believe, like, maybe the Acclaimed, Brian Pillman Jr. and the other guy probably will eventually make it to WWE. People like that, you know what I mean? Like the really young guys. Jungle Boy, I believe, is gonna one day make it to WWE. And honestly, the way things are going, I hate to say it, but the way things are going, Darby Allin is gonna make it there too. You know, I mean, Darby Allin is nothing more than a Shannon Moore. He's like a Shannon Moore ripoff, but it is what it is, you know. So what's gonna happen then to AEW? You know, they will have no one to rely on, right, except for Cody Rhodes. So the only thing to do here, motherfucks, is exactly that. Push people like Big Show and hope that one day you'll be able to attract like a Big Show that's going to stay with you for 10 years. Like TNA attracted Kurt Angle. And let's be real, that's the downfall of TNA. The downfall of TNA is exactly that. It's when people like Kurt Angle and Christian Cage and Booker T and Scott Steiner and Kevin Nash, the main event Mafia and friends basically, when they left, it was a wrap. And then when AJ Styles left, it was really a wrap. And Dudley Boyz left, you had nothing, you know? So there you have it, motherfuckers. That's what I say about that. And that's how I feel about the Big Show. I'm not very sad, obviously. I'm sad that it happened, but I don't think anybody should hold it against the Big Show. It is what it is, motherfuckers. You know, like there's no loyalties in this. This isn't like a real Wednesday Night Wars. It's not like that, you know. But there you have it. You know what I mean? There you have it, cucks. So with that being said, I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.